Okay. All right, so we're recording right away. So right now it's just me and Susan. We'll see if anyone else wants to show up, but we're gonna have a good time. So tonight is what I'm calling Monster Mash. So we're just gonna be talking about all things spooky and supernatural, just the whole gambit. So I know last week we talked a good long conversation really about ghosts, but I feel like I maybe was teaching more than I was actually like sharing stories. So Susan, if you have any stories, ghost stories from your paranormal investigations or other stories that aren't necessarily ghost related, please share with us. Is it mostly just ghosts and spirits and all that jazz, or have you encountered anything other?
With me, I guess I have mainly ghost experiences. I did have an experience with an angel one time that saved my life. And I'm assuming it's an angel. It might have been an ancestral spirit.
Ooh, what happened there? If you're willing to share, I mean.
No, I can tell you. I was driving home from a church camp. And this was back when I was in my 20s. And it was a long, flat straightaway. And I pulled, nobody was on the road but me and the semi. And the semi he was probably going 10 miles over the speed limit, but it wasn't satisfactory. And so I pulled out to go around him. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, there's another car coming straight towards me at a high rate of speed. Don't know where it came from. It's a 2-lane highway. And the steering wheel was ripped out of my hand. And the car was flung into the right lane again. And my hand hurt from having it grabbed out of my hand.
Wow.
And I'm still alive. So I believe it was an intervention by a being.
Oh, absolutely. I believe that for sure. I don't, like you said, I don't know if it was angel or spirit, guardian angel, spirit guide, ancestor, or what have you. But yeah, for sure, for sure. I know I've had something to a lesser degree. I don't recall if I shared it on in my Reiki in one of my Reiki courses, but I had something similar-ish happen when I was doing Reiki that when I was brand new, like I think I was like only level 1, like brand new. And I was practicing on my mom. Uh, but of course I was brand new, and I think she might have been the first or second person I had ever practiced on. And I felt somebody, like actual hands, like it felt like real living hands grip my wrists, like but gently. Like it wasn't like they were hurting me. It was like they're just placing their hands on my wrists and like guiding my hands, like they were physically moving my hands.
Oh,
No, like
wow.
yeah, it was like to show me this is where, like a spirit guide, right? That's how I kind of took it. It might have been Archangel Raphael, because he's the one that
Yeah.
helps with healing. But it felt like whatever it was, because I didn't actually, even as a medium, I didn't see what it was. I just felt like physically felt just hands, just like a gentle grip, right? Just moving my hands where they kind of needed to go, rather than like in Reiki, at least as I was taught and how I teach it, because that's how I was taught, is you have like your sort of hand movement. So you go here, 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 like
Oh,
this
yeah.
is where you place your hands, right? Uh, and in this case, my hands, I was doing more of like of a hovering over, because there are certain areas of the body that it's not okay for you to put your hands on it, right?
Right.
Like private areas or whatever. And so I was hovering over a sensitive area, and I felt someone grab my wrists and move my hands where they needed to go, rather than just doing as I had been taught at the time, which is just, hand movement, hand, hand here, there, like it was just like, no, go here, like almost like on a Ouija board with the planchette, when the planchette just kind of
Uh-huh.
moves. It was kind of like that, but with my hands. It was getting moved
Yeah.
around.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I
Yeah.
was taught more to follow your hands, but it's like, when I was first starting Reiki,
Mhm.
We were sitting on a sun porch, and there was just a soft breeze, and you could hear the wind in the trees. But I kept feeling a fluttering by me, and it's like I'm being angel wings were wrapping their arms around me or something,
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Yeah, I had this other experience too that I go back and forth on exactly what it was. I could see it completely, like it was very real, but what the entity was is still like it was of the light. I know that much, but I don't know if it was an angel or a spirit guide, an ascended master, like no idea who it was. And I shared it at the end of my book, Paranormal 101. And I might have shared it elsewhere because I like to share this story. Um, but I was going through a really gnarly depression and like was on like suicide. Like this was, trigger warning, but that's where I was at the time. I was like done, right? I've been going through depression for a long time and I was just like done. And so I had said, just kind of out into the ether at that point, because at that point I had lost, any kind of like faith that I might have had or any of that stuff. Like I just kind of lost all that stuff. Wasn't sure there was a God or anything out there, right? I was just kind of like, what? And I was like, okay, if there is anything out there, like now's the time, right? Show me, prove it. Now's the time. Make yourself known, or I'm out. Like I'm done. I can't do this anymore. Like, now or never kind of deal. And I saw this portal open up, this big white light portal open up, like took up my bedroom. I was in my bedroom, just kind of sobbing on my bed. And this portal just opens up, and a man, or what looks like a man anyways, walks through it. Like he's just wearing like robes or whatever. Uh, and he walks through and he just kind of gets on the bed with me, puts his arms around me, and I just kind of like kind of started crying like into his chest. Like this was like for me, this was a very like it was like a physical person, right? Like this wasn't something that I was like as a medium. Usually we're going to see spirit in our third eye. Typically, if we're going to see it, we're going to see it here, right? Like it's going to be more of a mental image than actually seeing it it's a full bodied apparition kind of thing. It does happen, but it's really, really rare. In this case, for me, this was a physical person. This was like it's like in what is it called? Doctor Strange, the Marvel movies, when they open up a portal and you see this thing. It was almost like that, but like a white light. And this guy comes through and he just kind of sits on the bed with me and puts his arms around me. So I'm just kind of like sobbing into like his upper body, kind of thing, just crying. And he's just like, let it go, let it go, let it go. Right. And just kept saying, let it go, let it go. Whatever it was just whatever, gross depression or negative energy or whatever was in there, trauma, whatever, right? It was like a healing thing where he was saying, let it go, let it go. Like let that all that crap that's causing this depression, let it go, right? Very Elsa-y, let it go, let it go. I'm just crying. And then eventually I kind of cry myself out, just kind of exhausted, right? And he's like, okay, so you're okay, right? Like you're okay. It's gonna be okay. Like you good? Can I go? Kind of deal. Like that kind of like, are you okay? Like if I leave, are you gonna live? Kind of thing. Like don't do anything, right? And I'm like, yeah, I'm good, I'm good. Like just like okay. And he's like, okay. And so he just kind of it's like, okay, you're okay. And just kind of gets up, goes back through the portal, and it closes. And I just because I was exhausted, I'd been crying. I don't even literally have no idea how long I'd even been there. And so at one point I was just like I just kind of felt lighter, right? Obviously I felt very light. I'd let all that crap go, right? I just kind of cried it out, right? I cried it out and just felt so much lighter and just was like, I'm exhausted. So I ended up actually just falling asleep. And when I woke up the next day, I was like, I was on cloud nine. It was like bliss, right? It was like I had experienced samadhi or something. Like I was just like the lightest I've ever been in my life and just full of joy and bliss and just like everything was right in the world, right? Everything was good. There was the depression was completely gone. It was all gone. All the crap that had been causing it was all gone, right? And yeah, it was amazing. Like it was like this big healing thing, but I still don't know who that was, right? Like I still don't have an answer to that. And it's not something where, like I tap in and I'm like, hey, spirit guides, was that you? Or hey, angels, was that you? Kind of thing. It was just kind of it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter who it was.
Right.
At the end of the day, it
It
didn't
was
matter.
somebody that loves you.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I don't know if it was even like far, far back ancestor, because like I said, this guy was in robes, so like long time ago. But yeah, I don't know, but yeah. So it's good that we're kind of starting off with this kind of lighter topic because
Uh-huh.
a lot of the times when we come to do these, when we're talking paranormal or supernatural, any of that stuff, it's always scary stuff, right? It's a lot of
Oh yeah.
times it's going to be scary stuff, and that's why I put it at the end of my book. So a lot of my book was more heavier topics, right? Like
Yeah.
ghosts and sad ghosts and malevolent spirits and demonic and all of that. So I put it at the end of the book. Oh, by the way, right? It's not all bad, right? There are good spirits out there. There are good, there are angels and all that out there. So it's good that we're kind of starting off with that, just to kind of make that clear to anybody who watches the replay that, you know, just because it's supernatural doesn't mean it's bad, or it doesn't mean it's automatically evil or anything like that. Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So but yeah, so like I said, this is, I mean, and when we're talking supernatural too, it didn't even occur to me. I don't know why it didn't occur to me, but even when I was listing out like ideas for topics that we could talk about as far as supernatural goes, technically, angels and um, ascended masters and uh, all that are supernatural, right? They're not of this physical world. So, as far as I'm concerned, it still counts.
Oh, yeah. One of the things people say, well, don't you get scared or I'd be so scared. And it's like, you know, I've met monsters. I've met real monsters. And they are warm-blooded and two-legged.
Yes.
And because during in the course of my work, because I don't know, I think you know what I do, but I'm an attorney, I'm a defense attorney, and I work in child protection. So I meet the baby killers and the rapists, child rapists, I mean just people that do horrible, horrible things to other
Oh,
people. And they'll stare you in the eyes. And some of those you look in there and it's like you look in their face and you don't see a soul. It's like
yeah.
their eyes are dead.
Yeah.
Those people are the ones that scare me. The people when I'm walking up and down the street on a busy Friday night, who's carrying, who's high, that's what scares me. Walking to my car, going in with a bunch of ghosts, nah, mess with my mind a little bit, but,
Same.
ghosts I'm not that afraid of. And I
Yeah.
haven't met
Same.
any demons and I'm going to keep it that way.
Unfortunately, I have,
Hopefully.
but uh, I have, and they are. I mean, we'll get into it, especially. I mean, we can a little bit today, but also next week's topic is demons, so we can really get into it
Uh-huh.
then. But because I wanted the scariest one, as far as I'm concerned, the scariest one to be the last topic for Spooktober. So
Absolutely.
uh, yeah, so I do have some stories around that, unfortunately. But yeah, as someone who, well, for one, as a cisgendered woman, you just walk around scared. You just
Yeah.
do. Like, uh, you never know who's going to come from where, uh, as someone who also um, has been abused as a child, and then also now has a true crime addiction, for better or for worse, that, yeah, the
Mhm.
scary, as far as I'm concerned, and I've come up around demons and having to deal with that, and that is a whole other thing. But
Right.
human beings are like, some of the stuff that they do is just like, you can't even fathom it as someone who doesn't think like that. You're like, who would even think
Yeah.
to do that, right? Like, so yeah, you kind of walk around being a little scared all the time.
My husband and I started watching the new Jeffrey Dahmer one. And it's like, I think we made it 15, 20 minutes. And it's like, oh my God, can't do this. This is just too negative, too evil. I mean, it's just too knowing that these guys are going to get eaten. that I can't handle. But I have a concealed carry, and I will take my gun with me when I go on an investigation, but it's not for the ghosts.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
we go to sketchy areas.
yeah, yeah, for real. Yeah, no, I watched the Dahmer thing, but yeah, and it was just creepy as hell.
Oh,
But yeah, yeah, it was like I watched the whole thing. It was creepy. Uh, but yeah,
oh, you
so
did? Oh, yeah. Ooh,
yeah, but then you have to. Then I also
no.
think just to kind of be back on the topic of supernatural, but it's still in that true crime ish thing that I wonder a lot of the times do they, when those whether it's the killer or unfortunately the victims, I always wonder, do they are they still there, right? Uh,
Oh, yeah.
like if you look at, especially, I mean, jails are haunted as hell. They're gonna be. There's no like,
Oh,
why
yeah.
wouldn't they? I mean, people, the horrific things that happen in jails. I mean, residual energy alone. My God. Have you ever, for that matter, have you ever investigated any prisons just as an investigator?
Well, yeah. And the Colorado Territorial Jail here in
Mm.
someplace we go every now and then, and it's an old women's prison, but they have the gas chamber there.
Ooh.
And so, and this was when I remember I was just starting to investigate, and everything scared me. And it's like, go sit in the gas chamber. No. Oh, come on, you're a coward. Yes. And I admit it. I own my fear when I have it. And so finally, I was like, okay, I'm going to go sit in there. And I'm sitting in there, and I'm in the chair, and I've got my arms in position, and it's like, oh, I'm so scared. Oh, I'm so scared. Then all of a sudden, it's like, oh, I'm so bored. Hello, hello, is anybody there? Did you die here? Was it awful? Will you talk to me? Will you? So, but yeah, our favorite place to hunt, one of my favorite places, and we also occasionally do publics there with small groups, is the Outlaws Anonymous Museum Jail up in Cripple Creek, Colorado, and it's their old jail. And every time we go up there, we see something. One night we were up on it's a 2 tiers for the men. Then the women have a separate cell block, but it's about 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, and this friend and I were up there, and he was just taking a bunch of, gosh, I think they were UV, maybe some sort of pictures. And all of a sudden, all the jails or the railings started shaking and vibrating and making this noise. We're just standing up there, and I'm going like, oh, my. And of course, camera battery's dead.
Of course. Oh, isn't that the way though?
I mean, we didn't really get any evidence, but it's in that same jail that they saw the doppelganger. In fact, I think that made it to Haunted Case Files or one of those, because it was Richard Estep, who's a friend of ours. So if you like serial killers, he writes a lot of books on them.
Ooh.
But they were up there with the same guy that was with me, who's also a medium. It was a different investigation, and he'd seen Richard up on the same second tier in the jail, and he talked to him. Richard just stood there and looked at him a little bit and walked off, and he thought, oh, okay, what's with him?
Mm-hmm.
Goes downstairs, and Richard's downstairs in the break room. And he says, but you were just up there. How did you? She's like, no, no, mate, I've been sitting down here the whole time, So yeah, they decided he saw a doppelganger. And that was in a jail. Energy in a jail. Like my watch one time, that same place, sitting in the juvenile cell was more of a room. And same investigator that I was with before says, do a time check. So I do a time check. We sit there for a while, and I think it was the first time I ever saw red eyes, and it turns out there was some sort of security device that was grabbing my attention. That's annoying. Broke my heart because I thought I finally saw red eyes. But we did another time check, and this was a regular wind-up analog watch, and it gone backwards an hour.
Oh.
And no, I did not turn it.
Yeah. No, that's wild.
It might have been a battery watch, but I think it was an analog.
Mhm.
So
Oh,
yeah,
that's
what about you? What happens to you in jails?
well, thankfully, the only time I've been to one, it was well, I say thankfully. I don't know if that's the right word, but the only time I've been to one is to visit the living.
Hmm.
So I haven't actually been in one as a medium, like as someone who is open up to that energy there. Oh, we got Tamika coming in,
Hey,
but
hey, how can you go?
oh, her audio's coming in still, looks like. But yeah, I haven't seen a doppelganger either myself, not yet anyways, but I've seen the red eyes, and that goes for me anyways. In my experience, the red eyes was related to a demonic entity, so
Mm-hmm.
I'll get into that in more detail again in the next one, because that's when we'll be doing uh, the demon topic. But yeah, that's Ooh, yeah, the doppelgangers, even though I've never come up against one, the idea of it freaks me out. Like,
Oh
what is
yeah,
that? Like what is it, right? Like is it like a residual energy thing? Is it like astral travel? Is it like a demonic thing? Like what is that? Right?
yeah.
So yeah. But yeah, we see
And
Tamika, are you around?
Ah, yes, I am.
All right. All right. Do you have any stories you'd like to share?
Well, I'm looking for something because in the group that I have, I told everybody to give out different things their culture do. And one girl posted, I've seen this before, and she's from where I'm from, maybe an hour away in South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
uh-huh.
It's a tree with bottles on it, and it's sending the spirits back. I was like, oh my God, I thought people was doing that just for art. She's like, no, it keeps the spirits at bay and send
Oh
them back
wow.
or something. I never knew that. I just thought people had, I ain't gonna say junk. I just thought it was junk in the yard. So I was looking for a picture to send you so you can share it with Susan. But it's crazy because there's like a whole bunch of bottles on a tree. Let me see
Yeah,
if
I
I can
think they do
find it.
that in Louisiana, right? Like that's like
Uh-huh.
around that area.
Well, both of us from South Carolina. A couple other members
Oh, okay.
commented and said they're in Mississippi, in Louisiana. That's funny, and they say they do that, and they
Hmm.
called it something else. I think they call ghost something start with an
Oh,
H
okay.
A I N T or something like that. So I was like, oh my God. I said, I'm from there and I never heard that. But see, my family, they don't talk about that type of stuff. So maybe that's why I didn't know. But now I'm gonna have to start looking at people's yard and noticing that. So if you know about it, you can talk about it because I didn't go into details with her about I just asked her if it worked. But I know my homeowner association ain't gonna let me put nothing like that up in my backyard with a whole bunch of bottles on it. And I don't know if it got to be a certain type of bottle. So if you know about it, let me know.
Don't know. Is it connected with voodoo or hoodoo or Santeria or something like that? Does it make
Oh, that
sense
ain't
coming
my
from
lane. I don't
Louisiana,
know.
Mississippi?
Liz?
Hmm? Yeah. Yeah, that's what because I don't know a lot about it either, but that's um as far as I know about it, the very little that I do, that yeah, it's same Susan, that I think it has something to do with the hoodoo thing. I'm not 100% on that though. I just know of it.
Okay, so now I know my family wouldn't have been telling us about that then, because I told your mother I came from a very strict Christian home, so
Hmm.
definitely they wouldn't have been talking about it.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I
Yeah, I
think.
found something on blue bottles upside down in trees in South Carolina, and it just says
Yes.
that it's a Southern tradition with ancient origins to ward off evil. And it looks pretty too.
Well, that's what I was saying. I thought it was just art, and I didn't
Uh-huh.
realize people were doing it for a reason.
It's similar to, it sounds similar to me anyways, as far as witches balls go. Some of them
Mm-hmm.
in certain cultures, uh, witches balls were used to ward off witches, like way back, right, in the 15, 1600s to try, and then I some will, some, not new age, but like some witches in more modern witches, that's what I'm trying to say. Modern witches now will use these witches balls as like the hoodoo thing with the blue glass jars, or not jars, bottles, is to use it as protection against harmful energies. Same with iron. Iron is used often to ward off specifically harmful entities. I know it originated again to ward off things like witches. A lot of that stuff goes back, to ward off because we were seen as monsters, right? Like actual, like you would, like vampires and werewolves, like we were seen like that. So we were seen as, oh, is that me? Nope.
Yes.
Oh, okay, I see, Tamika. Okay. Yeah, I see.
I'm looking Sue up now, so if you got her, immediately email.
Okay. Yeah, it's different than what I've seen as far as those ones go. I've often seen them like uh tied to like on trees, right? That's how I've usually seen it, but yeah. But yeah, the iron, as I was saying, they would, people back in the day would have like the horseshoe was originally to ward off um like negative entities and witches and all that, right before it was a good luck charm. And same with they would put iron under their front doorway so that you can't so anything harmful can't cross over uh into their space. So yeah, and as far as I know anyways, modern witches anyways will use these witches balls as very similar, is to kind of capture or ward off these harmful energies. Okay, so let's see. I don't really have notes this time so much as just like a reminder of like, oh yeah, if you're going to share a story, here's a couple that, So is there any other, before I start sharing it, really a whole lot of mine? Because mine are mostly either just like regular ghost stories, or like I said, there's some demonic stuff in there, but I kind of want to save that for next week if I can. So is there any other, and Susan and I, Tamika, if you didn't already know, started talking about some angel experiences that we've had, or maybe guardian angels, guardian spirits, any of that. Have you experienced anything along those lines? Anything with angels or light beings? And I know that you had wanted to also talk about starseeds a little bit more, so you can also talk about that if you'd like.
Yes. So one thing I've noticed when I've been doing my research, and this stuck with me for a long, long time. Now that I know what I know about the earth angels, your guardian angels and stuff like that, because I did have one member tell me that she actually met one of her guardian angels. She was in a bad situation and she couldn't get out. And she said this woman appeared from out of nowhere and helped guide her back to land. She was on a kayak, whatever. And she said when she got back there and turned around, she said, I kid you not, nobody was there. And I told them one time I got mad at my mom. I was 13. I ran away from home. I ended up taking a bus somewhere and it was like maybe 2 hours from home. And I went to this hotel because I was supposed to meet this guy that I was talking to online. He was 19 and he didn't show up. And some older black guy pulled up and he was like, what are you doing out here all alone? Because I was scared at that point. And he was like, where do you live? And I don't know what possessed me to get in the car with this guy in the truck. And the guy was talking to me. He was like, look, he was like, you really shouldn't do stuff like this. He said, technically, you shouldn't have been getting in this truck with me. And it was just something that felt calm with him. And like I said, now knowing what I know now and knowing how your angels step in when it's not your time and stuff like that in situations, because I was really freaked out. And he was like, I'm gonna take you home. He drove me that hour and a half back to my house. And he knocked on the door. He talked to my mom and everything. And my mom to this day would keep telling you that was your guardian angel. That was your guardian angel. She said, do you know what a man could have did to you? And I really do believe that that guy was my guardian angel because, and I don't think we ever got his name. My mom was like, no, she said he didn't give me his name. She said I was too busy thanking him and everything. And he even prayed for me and stuff like that. And he just left. So that is crazy. So now, after listening to that member tell her story, I was like, I really do think that was my guardian angel, because all these years I still think about it. But when I was reading about earth angels, I was like, yep. I said it had to be him. So I think that's like the only story I have with that. And probably, like I said, I slept with my parents till I was 14, because I used to see things, and I guess I can say that was my spirit guide. And it used to be this black figure, and he used to be down the hallway, and the way my room was, you can see down in the kitchen, and it never moved. It was just a black shadowy silhouette, and it just stayed right there. So I slept with my parents, and I used to have I don't know if y'all call it that. I'm pretty sure you know what it is, the witch riding you. And I used to have that happen a lot, to the fact that my mother had to put a Bible underneath my bed and her bed, because it used to be so bad. So now, thinking back on all that stuff, knowing what I know now, and knowing what my mission is, and I guess I have to tell Susan about the whole star seed thing. I get it. I completely get it now. So many things from my childhood make sense, when I just thought there was just different little events and stuff happening. So it's just crazy that all the stuff, I'm still amazed at the, how, what would you call it? Maybe y'all can help me find a word for it, because it's so crazy. At now that the veil has been revealed, because I didn't believe in psychics, I didn't believe in I believed in ghosts a little, I believed in spirits, and only on the Christian side of, like they said, the Holy Spirit, all that stuff. So knowing all the stuff I hear, demonic spirits, angels communicating with us, I am always, even when I see my angel numbers and feathers, I'm just so amazed. And I'm like, I just wish I could talk to people about it, but they'll think me crazy. So I don't say anything. So it's just, I'm just in so awe of this whole unveiling, if that makes sense. I don't know how any other way to describe it.
Yeah.
In a ghost story, but
Yeah, and just to kind of put it out there too, that's what spiritually charged, really, like the group, and why I do what I do and all of that. Especially with the group, though, the reason I have that there is so that we can talk about all this, woo woo stuff, or this, crazy stuff, so that people have a safe place to go when something like that does happen, that they can go and say, hey, this, crazy thing happened to me, and not have, people being like, oh, it, and just kind of trying to shove it under the rug, or just be like, nah, you crazy, or whatever, right? Like, I wanted to have that group as like a safe space for people to go to, and not even just talk about, like, because I mean, I do the coaching and tarot cards and all that, and yeah, sure, if you want to come and talk about that stuff, great. But I also wanted it so that there was a place for people to go, that when they have an experience, whether it's, angels or demons or spirits or whatever, that, or just like this weird thing happened today, right? They have a safe place to go where they can talk about it and not have people shit on them for it. Because I know what that's like, to one, be afraid that people are going to shit on you, and two, have them actually shit on you, right? And just be like, nah, right? And so, you're crazy or whatever, right? Or you're just making it up, or any of that stuff. So just kind of put that out there, that if you do have um, uh, paranormal experience or what have you, or just what even was that kind of experience, right? Spiritually charged, the group is meant to be a safe space for that. If you need that, if you're like, I need an outlet, I need to tell somebody this happened, right? You can go there for that.
Yeah.
Do you have anything? I know, so did you have anything to add there, Susan, or?
No, but it's nice to have a safe place.
Mm-hmm.
I know that people that know I'm a paranormal investigator, that's all very cool, because it's very mainstream now. So everybody's like, oh, you have ghosts and all that, but you try and get into the other spiritual stuff, and they start looking at you strange. So you're sitting there and you're rubbing on your little crystals and stuff and going like, maybe, yeah, I'm not going to talk about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because like I said, I'm not so much an investigator. So like I've never gone into a space to investigate, like as a paranormal investigator, right? I go in as a medium when I'm called to, right? It's not something where I'm like, I go and seek it out. It's more of a, uh, either I happen to be in, I happen to already be there, which has happened, or someone has called me in specifically as a medium, not to be like, to prove or disprove anything or gather evidence or anything. It's just to go in and be like, what, what is here? What can I do about it? Like, what do they want? How can I mostly it's how do I get rid of it? And so it's a hard conversation to have to tell them sometimes you can't, right? Because you can't force a spirit to cross over. But I forget where I was going with that. But yeah, when you're talking about the spiritual side of stuff, which is really, what I do on any aspect, whether it's as a medium or tarot cards or angel therapy, Reiki, Akashic records, any of that stuff. Everything I do is all woo woo, crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Right. That's all I do. So when you try to, so I've learned, to kind of test the waters, to be like, is this a safe space to talk about this? And if it's not, then I won't. Right. If I'm just like, oh, well, here's what I do. And I kind of like test it out. And if I get like a kind of a funny look, then I'm like, I'm just not gonna, right? I'm not here to change anyone's mind, right? Or to debate anybody. I'm like, I know what I know. I don't need you to believe me, right? Or to change your mind on different things, right? Like, I'll say, just for instance, like my mom is a born again Christian, and she is not happy that I'm a witch, right? That's big for her, big no. So anytime, she's tried to kind of be like poke, I'm just like, nope, nope. You have your beliefs and I respect that. So how about we'll just respect that our beliefs are different, agree to disagree kind of thing. I'm not going to do that. But it's also something I learned because I'm also vegan. And so I get shit on a lot for being a vegan. So I've learned to not be one of those dickbag vegans, though, who's like, meat is murder, blah, 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 right? I'm just like, you do you, let me do me, and let's just agree to disagree, right? I don't need you to turn to my way of thinking, and I don't want you to do the same to me, right? So yeah, but yeah, I kind of just test those waters, though, and I don't make it a point to push on that stuff when it comes to excuse me, like my woo-woo stuff, as I put it. So I'm all about the crystals and incense and good energy and all that, and people are like, okay, hippy dippy, and I'm like, it is what it is. Pardon me. Oh, I was really phlegmy the last couple days.
Excuse me, Tamika, I just got a notification you're trying to send me a message.
Yep, I was like, I hope this is the right person I'm sending this to. I was sending her starseed information.
Are you Tamika Smalls?
Yes, I think I got a picture of my daughter on there still, which I probably need to change that.
It's
been like that for years.
Yeah, okay, I got
kept her on there for years.
Oh my God, what a beautiful baby. Oh, very cool. Of course, it's not letting me open it, but oh, no. Don't block, don't delete. Sometimes I hate my phone. Okay, so it's right here and it's not letting me. If you reply, we'll be able to call you and see. Yes. So I'm going to try and reply as we continue on here.
Yes.
Did you send her a picture too of the blue?
Oh, no,
bottles?
I didn't. I sent her some of the stuff I sent you with the starseed stuff. And
okay.
One thing I found out, because most people think that you only go through one awakening, it's a lot of awakenings that people go through. If you're a starseed, you go through a starseed awakening along with the regular awakening. You go through, if you're an earth angel, you go through the earth angel awakening. And it's two more. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's a lot. So normally people think it's just one type. And one thing about starseeds, each starseed, depending on where you're from, because it's so many types of starseeds. The worst ones are the reptile starseeds. It's supposed that these starseeds, they're the demonic ones. They came here to destroy.
and cause chaos on the earth for humans. So most star seeds, they feel like they don't belong here. So most people, how can I explain it? Because some of y'all might be star seeds and you don't realize it. Because I know anybody born after, is it 2007 or something like that? That they are crystal kids, indigo kids and stuff like that. So they have a very close connection to the divine. Like some of us, when we are born, we forget that, but these kids that are being born now, they don't forget that. But with the reptile star seeds and stuff, these star seeds came down as light workers. So you have your regular energy workers and people that do Reiki and all that, and they have their spirit guides that help them. Star seed light workers, each one of those people missions are different, and they have two different type of spirit guides. I believe you have your regular ones, and once you have a star seed awakening, your star seed guides take over, and that's where you get your huge energy, because it's supposed to be like this completely different type of energy than a Reiki healer. And that's when you start healing like mass of people and stuff, and you do it through them. It's kind of like you're that third person, but that energy is really coming from the star seed healers and the divine and stuff like that. So I did go to somebody, I went to 3 different people to see, and all 3 of them said the same thing. You can find out where you're from. You can find out if you're a hybrid. Like I said, I found out so much stuff. It's just crazy. Y'all can jump in anytime. I'm thinking off the top of my head. So it's crazy because I found out that I used to be like, oh, when I'm going to have a spiritual awakening. So I found out that I was born awakened, because some people are born awakened. Most star seeds are. They just go through a whole bunch of different levels of it, and they have to really learn how to bring their frequency level up. So supposedly with this new shift that's going on, a lot of star seeds are going to start awakening, because we are used to this frequency that's going on right now with this shift. So that's why so many people are going through this journey right now in the masses. But a lot of them are committing suicide because they don't know how to handle it. And it even tell you that most new star seeds will fail, and they will end up what we call a reset. They will end up committing suicide and everything and coming back, because they're not used to having a human experience. So a theory that's out there that is crazy. I guess I got to back up because I'm going all over the place. I keep thinking I'm talking to my best friend, because she's a star seed, but she's not a light worker. So all star seeds are not light workers. So let me clarify that. And I think I said this last time, she's more of a observer. So you got, depending on what galaxy you come from, you're either an observer or you're overseer, keeper. You got your light workers, and even your light workers are going to be different in the type of work, because a lot of famous writers, and I think it's the Da Vinci Code, the Matrix, and there's some other ones. Those writers are star seeds, and their mission is to get the messages and the codes that they get and bring it out to the mass in media and through books and stuff like that. So Liz probably can jump in on that part, because she's probably familiar with it. But that's why a lot of people, sometimes that's how angels communicate with us too, and we download codes, because it's little hidden messages and stuff in there, and these movies and entertainment and stuff like that. And you even got some star seeds, their only mission is to make money so they can invest in other star seeds, nonprofits, and stuff like that. So each star seed is crazy. All of them, their mission is going to be different.
That is so amazing, you know.
Yeah, because the little bit that I know, because I think it's on YouTube, she's Caitlin Diana, but on Facebook, she's Caitlin Scott, and she does what she calls what is it? She was calling it Starseed School. I think she's since changed it to Healers Rising, and her belief is that we those that are star seeds anyways, have like, we're not just one, right? Like we have an original, right? We have the original starseed place that we came from, the point of origin, and then we reincarnated into another starseed, and then another one and another one, right? Like we spent time along, like our soul or whatever spent a long time in different galaxies and different planets and different, and that we are all these different star seeds, and then eventually at some point we come to Earth and reincarnate here a few times, right? That most her belief is that most people on Earth now are star seeds, that very few are here now as just I don't know how, I guess, quote unquote, pure human, right? That human. Most of us, yeah, human, that we just were, that this is their first go around ever, right? It's very few and far between that you're going to have a person incarnate, or a person who this is their point of origin, that Earth is their point of origin these days. Anyways, that's kind of her belief, is that that star seeds, yeah, we weren't just like one thing and then incarnated on Earth before that, right? Like if you're a Syrian, I think I might be Syrian. I think that might be it's either my point of origin or my previous life before I became human. That so say your point of origin though is Syrian. You're not just Syrian and then human, right? You are this and then that and that and that and all these different ones, and spend a long time in those ones, and then you're human, right? At least that's her belief. That's kind of, she's got she's got some courses and stuff like that around starseed stuff. I haven't really delved into it just yet. That hasn't been something I felt called to do just yet. So I know just like I know what she believes, like, it's not something where I'm like, well, if she believes it, I believe it, right? It's just kind of sharing, this is what I've heard from her and how she believes. Yeah, but
and one thing is, you do have to normally, if you ever hear somebody say you're a highly revered being, normally you have to go through a lot of the galaxies. It's like it's preparing you for a mission, because it is a mission. So you do have people that are pure, they call it purebred. They used to be like angels. And they came down, so they kind of keep their original wherever it is that they're from. Normally they're from the 11th dimension, and they come down from they come from one particular galaxy, and with that you have to travel through the galaxy being reincarnated. So you've been reincarnated many times in all these other galaxies and stuff, because you're picking up information, you're picking up codes and stuff. And the thing is, when you finally get to Earth, like she was saying, you have been through a lot of galaxies, you've been through a lot of training and stuff, and you come here to have a human experience, and you come here to do what your mission is. And the funny thing is, well, not funny, another part of it is certain star seeds, they're what they call manifestors. They can manifest. They are the co-creators of their own life. Like, how some people life is set in stone, is written out. They create with the divine, they create their own life as it goes. So they have the power to change their destiny.
Wow.
So yeah, so it's crazy. And I ended up going to a networking event, and they introduced me to this lady. It was like, oh, Tamika do shadow work. She does shadow work, and on her business card, she says she's a manifestor, and she has the power to manifest a lot of stuff too, than the average person. So, because she's, the whole co-creator and stuff like that, and the type of star seed she is. So yes, I'm telling you, it is just so much to learn. But yes, that lady, she's absolutely right on that particular part, about going through the different galaxies and stuff, because it's kind of like it's preparing you for this mission. But a lot of them do want to go back home, and that's what they say. If you ever look up at the stars and stuff, and you just feel like Earth is not your home, 9 times out of 10, it's not your home, and that your soul always know where it originated from. And that's why it got this aching to go back. I was like, well, I don't know if I ever had an aching to go back, but I do know I'm fascinated with looking at the stars and stuff like that. But have any of you, well, that don't go for Liz. It'd have to go for Sue, because I know you know your past lives. Have you ever dived in to find out any of that information?
No, I want to. I know the first time I started thinking about it, I got a strong, and I guess it's an impression, though it might have just actually been a clear audible. It's like, no, not yet. You're not ready. You wouldn't like what you see. So, which kind of makes me go, oh, I really was a bee before. Oh, okay. But, now it's like, no, now you're ready. And then I got looking for some online because, we love the internet. And this lady who has this wonderful resume out there, she'll do it for $350, just video in, and other ladies,
How
and
much?
I want a real person to do it. I don't mind making a donation, but I need to make sure that your chops are legitimate, because I
You
have
get
some
you
theories
get
about where I
$1,000.
was, who I was, and probably wasn't
Well,
real nice.
just a quick question. Have you done, because I made a course on Akashic Records. Have you done any that course or a different course around Akashic Records so that you can do it yourself, so you're not dependent on an outside source?
No, I mean, I've been wanting to do your Akashic Records course, and it's like lately I've been doing so darn many different classes. I see, I didn't swear. I said, darn. I'm working on the potty mouth. It's a work in progress. But, so it's definitely on the ones that I want to do, because now I did not realize that Akashic Records would let me actually access my record. Is that what it does when it lets you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna tell you something. Depending on the type of star seed you are, it won't let you access it until you go through a certain type of awakening. Because remember what you were saying, you got that feeling it wasn't time. So sometimes you won't be able to access your own records until, because it's like that stuff is locked in, and it's a certain time that is predestined to come out, and other people can tap into it. So until you get there to tap into it on your own, because I had to learn that, it would be hard.
Yeah, and I also shared in that course too that, because I think now Tamika might be able to correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think there are separate records for starseed stuff, right? Like the Akashic records are for human, like your human lifetimes, and I think starseed records are they're like a mentee records or something. They're like a separate thing. But I shared
some of your humans experience are locked too, because it's things that you have to. So from the research that I did, and it is a guy on uni that teach it, and high ratings on star seeds and the activation code and things that you go through to kind of trigger the awakening. He warned you that you have to be ready, because there's some stuff you're going to see, and you have to be able to handle that type of information. And certain star seeds have access to other people on, because that's not something that everybody has access to. Other people records and stuff. So certain human experiences, you have to master what gifts that you have now, and when you unlock it, you unlock a whole bunch of other stuff. So it have to be a certain time. And I guess you do know that we choose our own lives when we come here, and we actually map out when we're going to have these different types of awakenings and stuff. So it's a certain time that you're supposed to access it with that particular star seed stuff to get the full one, even some of your human stuff. So you'll be able to tap into some of your past lives, but not a lot until, what do you call it? Karmatic connections or lessons. You have to go through a lot of that to build up to that level. But you said somebody was trying to charge $350. You can pay way less than that to get
I know. I mean, I'm just saying, no, I started looking and I thought, well, that's ridiculous. When it's time for me to do it, the universe is going to say, this is how I want you to do it. But I was in one of my, well, would you hurry up? And of course, because we get impatient. This is,
Yes.
I get impatient.
Yeah, because I know,
get yelled at.
because I do Akashic record readings, and they charge way less than that. Like I think they're $45. I have to check. I don't remember what I charge.
Yes.
But like it's a lot less. And
Oh, yeah.
I haven't tried to do any starseed readings. I accidentally slipped into one of my own. I shared it in the Akashic Records course that I was going into what I think is a past life in Egypt, but it morphed. So I slipped into a starseed record by accident because I didn't mean to. I wasn't trying to do that. I was trying to look at my human lifetime. And I was like, I started to go into Egypt and then it morphed and it became a different planet with like three different, I think it had different three different suns, I want to say, and the planet itself was like, I think it morphed because they're both, my best guess is because they were both sandy, because the planet I ended up on, like it was all sandy, and I was like this little lizard guy, like not a like the scary reptile guy, but like a little like lizard, little alien lizard thing, like just like a little guy. It was just a little guy, just like walking around being a little lizard. And yeah, and I noticed everything was like, it was like a dark, like it was all dark and sandy, but there were three moons or three suns, something like that, and it freaked me right out because I was not prepared for that. I was not there to tap into my starseed anything. I was not any. I knew very little about starseeds and freaked me right out, and I was just like, oh, get out of here. Right, and immediately went to the group I was in to be like, what was that? Because it freaked me right out. And I was like, because with Akashic records anyways, and I say it 1,000 times in my Akashic records course, that what gets recorded is the emotional, like anything that you have an emotional response to, or like neurological or physiological, like anything that you have a real like charge to, like an energy charge to, that's what gets recorded, not the daily, oh, she ate a sandwich that day. That's not going to get recorded. Nobody cares about that. So when I slipped into this this what I think is a starseed memory, I was like, why did that get recorded? Like, knowing what I know now about Akashic records, I'm like, why did that come up? Because there was nothing scary was happening to my little lizard guy self. I was just living my little lizard life, just walking along, not being scared. I wasn't anything. I was just standing there being a lizard. So I'm like, what was that? Like, I don't know why. I don't know what happened there. If that was just like a memory, I still to this day could not tell you what happened. But I was a little alien lizard guy, and it was so cute and little. I'm like just a little guy.
Well, I keep having this one flash, I call it a flashback. Every time I hear one particular piece of music, and it's a light classical piece, probably right at the turn of the 1900s. I mean, that's what I'm thinking it is, but I'm somewhere, and I want to say it's in northern Italy, or probably northern Italy, somewhere in there, up in the mountains. There's this big mountain lake, and there are like the big yew trees and stuff. And I always see it, and I see a young girl, by young, 18, 20 years old, with the Gibson girl type stuff and all that, and just floating around in this boat on this rowboat on this lake. Mm-hmm. And I always feel so home when I'm there. Mm-hmm. And I'm like going, what is it showing me? What is it telling me? Is it just that I watch too many period movies on TV? And that's where I want to be?
Well, it sounds to me too, because like I said, it's anything that has an emotional charge. So it's like we were saying at the very beginning of this about with the paranormal, about how when you think about paranormal, automatically most people are going to think scary. And we started off talking about angels, not scary at all. And it's the same with the Akashic records and anything that gets recorded being an emotional charge. So anything that's like a really strong emotion. So even if you were feeling a strong sense of peace and joy or bliss, that will get recorded. So if in that moment you were just like, this is my bliss, right? This moment, because I've had that. I've been out in nature and just been like in that like present, like I was just present, fully present, and just in my absolute bliss that I started laughing. Nothing
Yeah.
funny was happening, but I was just in such bliss that I just started laughing. And it sounds to me like that could also be in that moment for you, that in this rowboat, that you had that moment of just pure bliss or peace, like that samadhi moment where you're just in pure, you were so present and in peace that that might have gotten recorded, because you were just like, that's a high vibe, like that's high energy, and I could see why that would get recorded if that is in fact what that was. Yeah. Okay. So do we have any stories about, like we talked a bit about starseeds, and that's an alien-y thing. Does anybody have any like encounters, maybe any of those stories? I know I don't. I wish I had an encounter, but I haven't.
I've got a ghost story.
Ooh,
I mean, I've
okay.
seen a ghost. Of course I've
Okay.
seen a ghost, right? It's
Yeah.
me. But the first time I saw a full-bodied apparition. But, you know, even though I disparage Zach Bagans, I used to watch him faithfully. I mean, faithfully. And back in the day, he really was good.
I still do. I am obsessed with Ghost Adventures. I love Zach Bagans, but like you, I will say, don't be Zach Bagans.
Yeah.
Right? Don't investigate like that. Don't do that. But you were saying.
I know, it's a good drinking game. How many times they say dude in that show, but you get drunk.
Right? Right?
But anyway, so they went to Cimarron, New Mexico, Cimarron, say it properly. And it's a little old town. It used to be quite the cow town, and now it's just kind of a bump in the road. And we stayed at the St. James Hotel, and I've been there like 2 or 3 times now, but I go there more for the chili rellenos with Pobano chilies, but that's a story for a different day. There's probably a reason why I'm fat, why I chose in the soul contract to come back fat. It pisses me off. I don't know why I would do something like that. But anyway, I digress. So it's like 3 o'clock in the morning, and there's a pattern here. The same medium I was telling you about at the Cripple Creek jail. And this is still when I was a brand new investigator. 3 o'clock in the morning, we're sitting in the jail, and we have on the green lights, you know, just those little dotty things and stuff. And sitting there, and once again, I have my trusty GoPro and laser grid. I've been forgetting words all day. I've had a headache earlier. And it's like, oh, you please record. And my GoPro has died. And just sitting there, there's nothing going on. And I look to my right, and there's a cowboy standing next to me, looking at me. And I know it's not my imagination, because if I was imagining a cowboy, he'd probably be very hunky and half naked, but we won't go there either. But there's this cowboy, and he's skinny, and he's a little bit older, and he has on a big Stetson hat and a long duster. And he's just standing there looking at me. And there's another cowboy right behind him, just off a little bit to the left, and he's turning more sideways looking at me. And it's interesting because it wasn't like a full color or anything, but it was a sepia tone. Like they weren't line drawings. I mean, you know, it didn't seem like a line drawing, but it was more like it was just tan and brown, you know, sepia and stuff. But they just stood there and looked at me. We looked at each other for the longest time, and I wasn't afraid of him.
Mm-hmm.
I was more like, WTF, you know, this is what I live for.
Yeah.
And that's the same place, you know, like they eventually just disappeared. I think I blinked or something, he was gone. I was laying in bed. I'd gotten cold during the day. We were out investigating some places, and I'm laying there in the bed in the room by myself, and something pulled on my toe. That was weird. And I was like, what do you want? Leave my toe alone.
Yeah.
But I mean, that was, you know. So that's fun. But you said something interesting earlier. Tamika, I don't know if you were on yet, but you were talking about when you see people or see things as a medium.
Yeah.
I always was under the assumption that it's like it's being projected right in front of you, like on a screen or something that you see, and you see them in place, but you said you see it in your third eye
Yeah,
instead, and you're
yeah,
conscious that it's in your third eye, not out in front of you.
right, yeah. Like
But
there are times where you can see them like they are a physical person. Like you can encounter that, but in my personal experience, it's extremely rare, to my knowledge anyways. There could be ghosts that I interacted with and didn't know they were ghosts, right? I thought they were people. It's totally possible. But the ones that I'm aware of anyways are few and far between. Most of them I see in my third eye. I'm so scared to see them in person. Yeah, most people are, but yeah, I see them, and so I go through that too. Not to kind of bring it back to that, but just to mention it, that in the Akashic Records course, I go a lot into the psychic part of it. And so I do talk about like how with clairvoyance, and that's how a lot of mediums, myself included, will see them is through clairvoyance, and that means that you're actually seeing them in your mind's eye rather than like outside as like a physical person. You'll see them standing there, but you'll see it in your mind's eye, right? So it's kind of yeah, it's like that. But yeah, and same with just to kind of mention it since we're on the topic, it's the same with clairaudience, which Susan, you might already know, but for those who might not, with clairaudience, I'm not hearing a spirit audibly. I'm hearing them like a thought, like it's coming through like a thought. So it's coming through in my mind, rather than like hearing a voice outside of, and that you can have that too, but that's not a psychic ability to hear a spirit audibly. That's not a psychic thing, because anybody, if a ghost wants you to see it, you'll see it. If it wants you to hear it, you'll hear it, right? Like Susan, you know, as an investigator, you know that if a spirit wants to make itself known, it will, and you don't have to claim to be psychic. My belief is that we are all psychic and we have all of these abilities, just tuned to different levels, right? So for me, my higher ones, well, I would say my highest one is clairaudient, very, very closely with clairvoyance. And then I have a lot of what do I say? Clairsations, is it? I think what is the feeling one. I get them mixed up sometimes, but I'm not super great at just knowing. I think that's claircognizance. Yeah, it's claircognizance. Yeah. The just knowing, I'm not, that's probably my weakest one, is the just knowing. I more feel, hear, see. The just knowing one is a little weaker for me. It's still there. Like I said, we have all of the abilities. They're just at different levels, right? But when it comes to spirit communication or interaction, like I said, you don't have to be reliant, if you will, on psychic abilities if they want you to see them or hear them or feel them or any of that stuff. Like I said before, I felt, and you too, well, to a degree, you said you felt the wheel turn, but I had like invisible hands, like physical. It felt like a physical hand. And that's not because I claim to be a medium or psychic or anything. It wouldn't have mattered, right? It was somebody had grabbed my wrists, physically grabbed my wrists and moved my hands around. And same with the wheel, right? It got moved. So yeah, so you don't have to believe that you have these psychic abilities. If a spirit wants to touch your toe or grab your wrist or wants to be seen as a full-bodied apparition or wants to be heard audibly, you don't have to have psychic abilities for that to happen. But when it comes to the psychic abilities, it's going to be subtle, right? It's going to come through subtly. And so that's why I say more often than not, if a medium or a psychic is going to see something, it's going to be in their third eye, which means they're going to get a mental image of it, or what I call a mini movie. Or if you hear it clairaudiently, then it's going to come through as a thought. Same with when you're feeling things, right? If you're feeling it, it's going to be more subtle. You'll just be like, I feel like this is the answer, or might even feel like a physical sensation or an emotion, right? Oh, Tamika, you said you have a question?
No, but after you finish.
Oh, okay. So yeah, what was I just saying? Because I start to go off, right?
Feeling
And then,
things, knowing things.
right. So when you're just like feeling things or just knowing things, right? Again, it comes through as more of a subtle thing, though. Like you might feel, that's what I was saying. So Susan, as a paranormal investigator, I'm sure that you felt, even though whether you believe yourself to be psychic or not, I'm sure you've probably picked up on the energy around you or felt an emotion that wasn't yours or, you know, what have you. And that's how it kind of comes across. It's more of that subtle thing. For me, I've had times where it kind of hit me like a train, but that's because I am more open, right? I'm like just naturally more open. People who are a little more closed off might not get hit the way others do, right? Because they just are naturally a little more guarded. And especially if I'm going into a place, especially as a medium, and I'm intentionally open, right? I'm gonna get hit by the train, so to speak, because that's what I'm there to do, is to pick up on all that stuff. So, but yeah, it's still going to, I mean, like I said, whether you believe you're psychic or not, your subtle energy is going to pick up on that stuff just anyways. You're going to pick, like, you can walk into a room, like how many times have you heard somebody walk into a room and said, oh, you can cut the tension with a knife, right? Like they walked into the room and just felt the energy. They're not going in there saying, hey, I'm a psychic. They're just, you know, they might not believe in any of that stuff, but you walked into a room and you felt it, didn't you? Right? Like, so yeah, but it's typically that more subtle rather than really in your face, typically speaking.
Yeah, but when you're sitting there and you're going like walk into a room and you just know that she's there and she's watching and she's not happy.
Yeah.
Now, is that psychic or is that?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends on if how much they're trying to actually communicate with you. So, like I said, if a spirit wants to communicate, you don't have to be psychic for them to get their point across.
Right.
But typically, if you're going to walk into a space and you just kind of feel that energy, if you just feel it and you're like, oh, I feel like I'm being watched. I hate that feeling. I've had that feeling. I hate it. But like, I feel like I'm being watched, or I feel this person's emotion or whatever. To me, that is picking up on that subtle energy. To me, that's psychic.
Okay.
Unless, like I said, unless you're hearing something more like audibly or seeing them as a full bodied apparition or seeing something or even a wisp. Yeah. Right. To me, that's not like when you're seeing with your physical eyes or hearing with your physical ears, that's not so much psychic to me as it is they want to communicate. Right. They don't care if you identify as psychic or not. Yeah.
Okay.
So Tamika, you said you had a question though?
So the first one, how would people, because you said that if they want, they'll put thoughts in your head, that's the way you can see them with the thoughts. So how can you separate that and know those are not your own thoughts? Well, I guess when you get at a certain level, so maybe let me say this, somebody that's not aware. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, for me personally, it comes through because all that energy is frequency. So typically if I'm going to hear something clairaudiently or if I'm going to see something clairvoyantly, it's on purpose. Typically, it's because I'm intentionally tuned in. So I'm trying to find that frequency. And sometimes it comes through as like, I describe it as like a radio station, like tuning a radio station to be able to like hear on their frequency, right? Because their frequencies are different too. And same with being able to see things or whatever. Sometimes like I've seen like it depends on what the frequency is, because I've seen things where I was doing oh, Susan, you know what this is, when you're touching something you get the memory from it. What's it called again?
Oh yeah, because that's what
what's that called?
Because that's my main gift.
Oh, okay. Oh. Yeah, I'm like, I know what
I'm gonna go to Mr. Google because I know the word.
Yeah, me too. And what is it?
I'm gonna put
psychometry.
Psychometry, yeah.
Psychometry, there it is. So yeah, so you have psychometry, I was doing psychometry one time, like on purpose though. Like I took somebody's key. I forget why I was doing psychometry on their keys, but all I saw was like a road, like as if I was that person driving down the road. That's it. There was no like emotion attached to it. There was like I just saw like the road and the side of the road and all that. Like we have a lot of like bush around here, so I saw like a lot of bush and like a road. I was like, well, that's nothing, right? That gave me nothing. So it depends. And then other times, like I said, you get mini movies or images like where you can see them, right? But for me, that's on purpose. So when I tap into that frequency, I'm doing it on purpose. So and sometimes they can come in if they want to communicate with you. Sometimes they'll come in while you're asleep because that's when you're most, not only most vulnerable, but when you're most open because you're floating around in that subconscious, right? So your consciousness is like your conscious mind is out of the way. It's not, it's not getting in the way. So they can come in and communicate with you that way while you're asleep. So they might talk to you, that way, or you might have dreams with them. I have a couple stories here about spirit dreams, like where a spirit comes in and visits you, but that I set aside just in case. But yeah, so typically speaking, in my experience anyways, when I wasn't doing it on purpose. Now these days I'm on purpose. Like I do it on purpose, right? I'm tapping in on purpose. And when I don't want to, I'm like, shields up kind of deal. But there was a time where, before my like early, like, cause I came in and understood what I was doing in my early 20s. Like I started to learn more about psychic abilities and what a medium was and all that jazz in my very early 20s. Before that, I still had these abilities. I just didn't know what they were, that they had a name. I thought it was crazy because I would have spirits trying to communicate with me, but I wasn't doing it on purpose, right? I was just this wide open door because I didn't know how to control my abilities. So there is also that too. And so in that case, if you're just a wide open door and they're just coming in and talking to you, you can kind of differentiate. For me, I would, whether I liked it or it was one of those things that it's like whether I liked it or not. So I would see them in my mind's eye, whether I liked it or not, and just see them watching me or whatever. And sometimes they would show me things, and that was always scary. I didn't like that either. But yeah, they sometimes will show you, how they died and all of that. And typically it's not, old and in their sleep, right? It's usually pretty traumatic. And so you might see that. But yeah, if you're a wide open door like that, then yeah, you're going to get, depending on your stronger abilities, they might just come to you and you'll just, because you're just this wide open, subtle energy body, right? That's just wide open and you're going to see these things. And if they come through as like a thought, it's more going to be, like I said, it's the tuning, for me anyways, it was like the tuning of a radio. So you might get it in somebody else's voice. For one thing, that's another way of knowing that it's not you, because it's going to come through as a different voice, but it's also going to be in like word, like a word or two, or like a very, very short sentence, like 3 words. It's usually not a whole lot all at once, right? So like Susan, you have your different gadgets or whatever as an investigator, and you'll know that oftentimes when they come through, that it's only a couple of words, right? Like they'll be like yes or no or Susie, or like they'll say like a word or two, and very, very rarely will you get a full sentence, right? It's very rare that you'll get a full sentence. And it's the exact same when you're tuning in with psychic abilities. It's the exact same thing as that. So you might get just like a word or two, you might get an image, right? And so you can kind of differentiate it that way, so that if you're getting something that's like a harmful thought in like first person, chances are it's not a spirit, because they will come through as a third person kind of thing, like, right? So it's kind of like that. Does that make any sense? I know, like, I do talk a lot about this in my Akashic Records course, and I will talk.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just saying that I do go over a lot of the psychic stuff in the Akashic Records course, because that's what you tap into when you read your records. in my experience. That's how I do it anyways. That's how I do it, so that's how I teach it. And so there I do a lot of talking about the different psychic abilities and touch a little bit on the mediumship stuff. And if there's enough call for it, then I will do a full course on psychic abilities and mediumship and all that jazz to really kind of go into it. But I want to make sure that there's some understanding here with Tamika.
Yes, and that's what I was saying, because I can imagine if a child is going through that, what's going through their mind. And then the other thing that I had, and y'all can let me know your thoughts on it, because listening to you, that make me wonder if these people that I see on the street really going through a mental illness, or they got a lot of spirits they talking to and they just wide open. So now, and I think I told you this before, it's starting to make me question some of these people that they have in these institutions, because I know no matter where you live at, you see certain people on the road sometimes, homeless people talking to them. Well, they're not talking to themselves. So now I'm starting to think maybe they're not talking to themselves and they're talking to other people, and we probably can't see them. Have you guys ever experienced that where you see them and you see whoever it is they talking to?
I've never experienced who they're talking to, but I know that a lot of people with mental traumas and issues are way more open to the other side. And so, it's hard to say. I mean, because, like we were talking about, we can't be open to with everybody, what we see, what we feel, because, they'll try and lock us up. And, that's only half a joke. Because, and I think a lot of those people are tormented. And then they get the drugs and alcohol going. And, I have one of my clients is that, she has horrible mental illness, and she's the sweetest person going usually, but it's terrible. And she asked me to Reiki her, long distance Reiki her, just, every now and then, just because she needs healing and clearing. But, I think a lot of those people are tapped into the other side, but it's not controlled.
Yeah,
And
I agree. Like
that's my theory.
Yeah, because like I think because I know it depends on the spirit too. Like if there's like how do I want to say this? Some spirits are going to that want to communicate, that want to be heard, they will be. Like they will go to, because especially if you have strong psychic abilities, like I said, we all have psychic abilities, but some are stronger than others. And on that side, spirit sees light. So if you are like if you have a very strong, say, spiritual body, right? You're very heightened with your psychic abilities. You come across as light to them. They see you as lit up, and they're like, "Oh, I can talk to that one, right? Or I can communicate with that one," and they will beeline if that's what if they actually want to be, want to communicate in some form. They're going to beeline for that light. And so if you have someone that happens to have mental illness and psychic abilities, yeah, that could be a recipe for disaster. But they aren't always one and the same thing, right? So you could have someone that has, mental illness and is maybe even like schizophrenic or something, like they're seeing things that are, quote, not there, but they may not be psychic on that level, right? Like they what they're seeing may not be paranormal. It may just be a delusion, right? So you do have to be able to differentiate between the two. Unfortunately, those people that would call us crazy group us all together and say, well, if you see something that's, quote, not there, then you must be crazy, right? You must be delusional. And you have to know the difference between someone who is seeing something that is a thing of their own mind and something that is actually paranormal. And something that's paranormal, it typically isn't a constant that's going to be there. Again, I don't have that form of mental illness. I have bipolar and PTSD and anxiety, but I don't have and there was a time where I would say that I had mental breaks, if you will, because I went through some really gnarly shit that would cause somebody to have a mental breakdown or two here and there. But so I can't speak super closely to someone who is having genuine delusion and what it would be like to be or not be psychic at the same time. I can't really speak to that too much. I can so
No,
yeah.
you answered. So yeah,
Okay.
that's what I wanted, because it's always going to be like a theory, because we can't really ask them, because I
Right.
don't want to say because they're not in the right. They'll give us an answer, but we don't know whether to take it at face value or not with what's going on. So I just started realizing that now, and I was like, I wonder when they be doing all that talking, like some of them will blurt out and be cussing. Like I didn't walk down the street and hear somebody be like, "What the F?" And I'd be like, okay, I know he's sick. And I'm like, well, what happened if he's actually talking to somebody? Because I didn't see him fussing with somebody that's not there. So now I'm just starting to think, what happened if they really are talking to somebody? So, my mind started to go somewhere else now. And I just started wondering, because I was like, what make them any different from us is that they exhibit it. Other people know how to kind of cool it. But I would think it'd be awesome, because I couldn't find much on YouTube on it. If somebody can give a class on how to not protect yourself, but protect yourself with dealing with entities. That makes sense. Like when you're dealing, like I heard some people on YouTube say that you could tell them you can only let me hear you but not see you. So I'm confused on how you set boundaries and how you're supposed to communicate your boundaries to a spirit, because I was like, that's the part they don't tell you. So I'm a little confused on that as well.
No, I just give permission. You have entities of light, positive beings have permission to contact me. You may, and that's what I list, you may talk to me. I usually say you may touch me. And I just give them permission to interact with me. And I will say negative entities are not permitted to touch me or harm me in any way, something like that. But it's all about permission.
Yeah,
So they have to
For me,
listen.
at least, for me.
Yeah, no, it's the same for me too, that I set those same kind of boundaries that I'll say, like I've said before, like I have a hard rule. You are not allowed to enter my body. Boundary, right? I do not do physical mediumship. I don't do the type of automatic writing where they kind of take your hand and move it. I don't like that. So I set a big boundary. You do not get to use my body. And I found personally, because not all spirits are going to be open to that, to be honest. And I've had that too, where you set a boundary, and just because you set that boundary doesn't mean they are going to respect it. And so there are things that you can do. So there's part of it, for me anyways, in my experience, has been part of it is your strength of will. So if my will is stronger than yours, that boundary is going to be respected, whether you like it or not, right? My will is stronger than yours. And in the cases where it's not, that's where you can put in certain things. So you can, for me, I will, have either Archangel Michael come in and protect me, or my own guardian angels. You can have other things like you have Palo Santo, certain kinds of sages. I don't think that white sage helps in that area personally, but there are, types of
Dragon blood.
Yeah, dragon's blood, frankincense. Yeah, frankincense. There are different crystals and stones you can use. There are certain symbols that if you believe they have power, then they will have power, right? So as a witch, I use a pentagram or a pentacle. And my belief is that if I believe that the pentacle, like because I have a pentacle in my necklace, if I believe that that's going to protect me, that's my energy, right? My energy says that's going to protect me, right? So it's the same with if you are someone who believes the cross or a crucifix is going to protect you, then it's going to protect you. Yeah, or the white bubble. Yeah, you can put a white bubble around you, because that's, again, it all has to do with energy, right?
It's so manifesting.
You're just manifesting that energy, exactly. So, but there are those different tools that you can use to help protect yourself. And sometimes it's enough to, and it depends on where you're at, right? but sometimes it's enough to just be like, okay, if you're not going to respect my boundaries, I'm just going to leave then. Especially as a medium, I can just leave. I can just be like, okay, well, you know what? This is what you're doing right now is not cool. You're not respecting my boundaries. I'm out, right? Then you don't get to talk to me, period. You don't get to talk to me. I'm not going to talk to you. That's it, right? And I can, leave the premises or whatever. But yeah, there are different tools, different energy work that you can do. You can call in your spirit guides, your angels, your guards, all that jazz. You can have your symbols, whatever you feel like brings you protection, and set those in place as well. Because like I said, not all spirits are going to respect your boundaries. Now, in my experience, most of your just regular earthbound spirits will. Most of the ones I know anyways just want to be left alone anyways. They don't want to communicate with you. They don't want your help. They don't want to communicate. They want to be left alone, right? And so you don't have to really set up boundaries with them too much. You might say something like, hey, can you just stay in the basement, or can you just stay in the attic and let me have the rest of the space, and I'll leave you alone, right? You go to the attic, I won't go in the attic, and we just have our own space, right? Or you can stay in the basement, I won't go in the basement, right? And they'll be like, yeah, cool, right? You leave me alone, I'll leave you alone, right? But yeah, the ones that actually want to communicate, and if they're not respectful, then that's when you have to start setting up these parameters. So who in the world do you and Susan be talking to? Well, Susan's a paranormal investigator, so she'd be talking to all kinds of folks. And me as a medium, it depends on who calls me in.
Yeah, when I'm on an investigation, hello, who's here with us? I'd like to talk to you. I sit there and I sound like an absolute idiot because I'm talking to air. Most of the time it's just air. But yeah. So, but you just start talking, because you remember, like, at least with ghosts, they were people. They are people. They're just in a different form.
Yeah.
You just talk to them like people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I
exactly.
know. I want to know who y'all be talking to, because you were saying the lower level ones kind of want to be left alone. So, well, it don't need me asking y'all what the other ones want, but I'm gonna ask. So, what do they want?
Oh, so you're talking about the unpleasant ones. How's that for being tactful?
Yes.
Oh, well, most of my experience is like I was telling Liz, I don't have a lot of interaction with demons. I don't. And I'm thankful for that. And I don't go out demon hunting, but I do talk to grumpy spirits. And one of the areas that I really want to start exploring, and I think it'd make a really neat class, hint, hint, Liz, is elementals, because not only do you have fire, water, earth, air, but there are other elementals too, the spirits that were never human.
Yeah.
That aren't demons, but they're in a whole nother category.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're just talking to them, and sometimes they're not real happy with what we're doing.
Yeah. Oh boy. Yeah, they are
What is
territorial.
that?
Yeah, no, the elementals are territorial as fuck. They do not, in my experience, again, I can only speak to my experience, that they do not like you in their space. They do not like it. It's a very hard get the F out. That has been my experience.
Wait, what is their space? I'm listening. What is their space?
Whatever they want.
Well, yeah, it's wherever they want, but typically in my experience, because where I live, like I said, there's a lot of bush. I live in Ontario, Canada, and there's a lot of forest and bush and all of that stuff. And so that's where I find them. They're very much in nature, and they like it, and they're just like, get out, right? Like that's a lot of what I've come up against. And a lot of them are in tune, because we have a lot of Indigenous people in this area as well. And so they're very in tune. The elementals are very in tune with them as well. And the Indigenous are in tune with the elementals. Yeah. And so it's almost like, in my experience, they kind of had this agreement that they kept those two groups kind of work together, right? Like they're cool with the Indigenous being in their space and vice versa, right? They're kind of cool. Now, if you are not Indigenous, and especially if you're coming in with a bad attitude, oh, they're going to mess with you, and it's going to be real
Yeah.
bad. It's real bad. They will mess you up. They are tricksters when they don't want you there, right? If you're not cool with them, they are tricksters. They will go out of their way to harm you and make sure that you get lost and freak you out and do everything they can to, it's not even just to get you out of their space, because they will do that too. They will do everything and anything they can to freak you out and, or, you know, try and get you lost or whatever and get you out of their space. But they also, again, in my experience, will go out of their way just to fuck with you, just because
Yeah.
you're in their space. It's not even just a matter of get out, which is a strong message that they give, but it's also a matter of, well, now that you're here, right? And then they will mess up your world. Yeah, I'm scared already. Yeah, they're, in my experience, I haven't come across any pleasant elementals. I have one green witch I know that she has been able to tap into what I might call positive fae or like light fae. Because she's a green witch and she's very in tune with nature, and so they kind of have this cool agreement. Then they just kind of chill, and they just, you know, they have an agreement, right? They work together, and they don't mess with her, and she, you know, provides them all this beautiful green plants and all these flowers and all these lovely beautiful things, and she treats them with the utmost respect. So I think that's another one too, that if you're going, like I said, if you, especially if you go in with a bad attitude, they will mess with you. Now, if you go in knowing that they're there and you come in with respect, they're more likely to kind of leave you alone than they are, right? But there's been times where, you know, especially when I didn't, again, before I knew any of this stuff, when I was like a teenager or a kid and didn't know any better, right? And I would just go into these bushy areas that we have around here in abundance, and not respectfully, especially as a teenager. What a dick. I was not a nice teenager, and so I would go into these areas and I would not be respectful, and they let me know they were not happy with my presence, and for a long time I was not allowed in certain areas. They just made it abundantly clear that if I tried to enter that space again, they would fuck up my world. And I was, because I could see them, right? And so I got that message real loud and clear, because I was, again, just an open door, because I didn't know how to, you know, control my abilities. So I, you know, heard, saw, felt them, all of that jazz, and everything they threw at me was get out and fucking stay out, right? Like very get out. It's only been, I'd say, in the last few years that they've allowed my presence back in those areas, because I come back with the utmost respect, and have, you know, apologized for my past behavior. Some of them have forgiven me, but there have been times where they, on purpose, tried to get me lost or sent me to, you know, to go get harmed in some way, right? Like they would go and do that because I was a dick. So yeah, so just kind of with the fae, or with really with the elementals, in my experience anyways, if you're going to encounter them, and I find them again mostly in nature. They really love nature and gardens. Like if you have a big beautiful garden, you might, there's a chance there that you might have some fae there, because they really appreciate a lovely garden. But elementals in general, I found them in nature, like in big, like I said, bush, forest, that kind of jazz, lakes with a lot of like foliage around. And yeah, if you don't enter their space with a certain energy and a certain respect, they will go out of their way to harm you or trick you, or just give you that, a general energy of get out is also a really strong one. And just making you feel incredibly uncomfortable, incredibly unwelcome. In my experience, I don't know, Susan, have you come up against elementals at all?
Not actually, you know, head to head sort of thing, but
No.
for example, where I live in Colorado, there are a lot of mines and a lot of caves. And, you know, we have Tommy knockers up here. In fact, my daughter is trying to set us up. We're going to go on some sort of Tommy knocker investigation somewhere, maybe to the Phoenix Mine or whatever, go looking for Tommy knockers. But, you know, like whenever I go in a cave or anywhere in there, I'm always saying, thank you for allowing me to come in here. I don't have a clue who I'm talking to, but whoever it is, I just want them to know thank you. And please don't squish me because I'm terrified to death of earthquakes and cave-ins, but yeah.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, I
you know,
haven't come up
you know,
against the Tommy knockers, but I know quite a bit about them, just, you know, watching certain TV shows and what have you. Especially, I think the first season of Hellier had a lot to do with Tommy knockers as well. It's a YouTube series. Yeah, and they sound real unpleasant. Like they drop things on you. They're unpleasant.
they also tell you when a cave-in is coming too.
Oh, okay.
I
Okay.
think,
See, I
I'm
thought,
pretty sure, yeah.
okay. I thought they would kind of be one of the ones that are like
Oh,
causing
they're
you.
imps.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're mischief. They're tricksters.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then, of course, you know, we can, some areas, because of what happens on them, like, and the most awful place I've ever been in the world is Dachau. And that's the only prison camp I've ever been to, the only prison camp I'm ever going to go to. But the energy there, and that's just, it's so overpowering. And that's from what people did.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if
Yeah.
they brought in other energies. I mean, they might have, but I think a lot of it's just the hatred and evil that was there.
No.
in
Yeah.
Humans.
Yeah. I can imagine that just residual energy alone must be overwhelming. Like I couldn't imagine walking into that, especially as someone who has, like, again, with the medium and like higher psychic abilities, to walk in and not be guarded, right? Like if you're guarded,
Yeah.
it might not, you might have be okay. But I feel like someone like me, if I was unguarded and just walked into that space, I think I would just be like hysterically crying, like just
Yeah.
because I would just think the energy would be so overwhelming. I'm surprised though that the places that I heard that you've been, especially of a prison or some, or like you were just saying, that because I find that not always, but in some situations, those darker energies or like the something we might label as demonic are really attracted to those darker places, right? Where there's a lot of fear and pain and hate. Like they really gravitate towards that. So I'm surprised that you haven't encountered more of those type of entities being where you've been.
Well, it might just be I'm oblivious too. But I've also noticed that a lot of times, you know, because they draw, a lot of these entities draw their energy from fear.
Yes. Yes, they
And
do.
I mean, because like we were at Ashmore Estates, was it last year or year before? I can't remember. And it was me, my daughter, who's a psychotherapist who used to run a mental health department in a prison. And then we had a PhD with a woman that was working with death row inmates. And then there's me, you know, and I'm a defense attorney. And we were sent down to the basement to meet with, oh God, what is his name? Is it Pete, Bob? This negative entity
Okay.
who hates women.
Mm-hmm.
And the owner of the Ashmore, and then the guy that it was his investigation, said, ladies, go down there and have at it. Just see what you can do. We had permission to provoke.
Okay.
And so we go down there and you can feel this ugly, creepy energy, you know, that oozy, nasty stuff. So it's like, you know, what the blank are you doing? Who do you think you are? Well, come on out and talk to me. And we kind of, the three of us went after him. And you can just feel him receding and curling up into a little hole and just kind of cringing and going like, get them out of here. Because he didn't mess with us. The whole for 3 days we were there. He just left us alone. He left the guys alone because we intimidated him.
Well, that's wild though. Like, because that sounds to me like that was probably a human malevolent spirit, right?
Yeah, it's a
But
human spirit, just a nasty old man.
yeah. So that's what, again, to some degree, there is that strength of will, right? Your will was stronger than his. And so he just curled up in the little ball and went away for a bit, right? He's like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't want to mess with it. It's like a bully, right?
Uh-huh.
When you have these malevolent human spirits, they're bullies. And so if you're like, I'm not going to take it, yeah, they'll back down, right? If you stand up for yourself and they sense like, oh, that's not the one, right? They'll back
Right.
off. But yeah, with a non-human, like demonic type of entity, that they don't back down. Not that easily anyways,
No.
not like that. Yeah.
But
But
I'll
yeah,
tell you
it just
what, we're going to Waverly Hills over Christmas, the sanatorium down in Louisville, Kentucky.
yeah, I'm familiar.
So I will let you know what I find down there, because I've heard there's some pretty nasty stuff.
Hell yeah. Now I've heard there's either a doppelganger and or what they call the creeper. Maybe I'm getting that
Yeah, they've
mixed up
got
with a different
creepers.
place.
Creepers, oh, they're so cool to see. You've seen them, haven't you, when you've gone in on site?
Yeah, I don't like them.
I don't
They
like
freak
them
me
either.
out.
They're black, oozy things that crawl along the floor, on the walls, or ceilings.
Yeah, yeah, I don't like them. I don't like them.
I don't
It
like
just they
them.
don't. I don't like the way. I mean, they look creepy just to start with. I mean, that's something you see something, some black thing, just kind of crawling around all different things. I mean, that's gonna freak you out. But also when you feel their energy, it's
Oh,
just
yeah.
oh, it's
So,
yuck.
so are they demonic, or are they just kind of a lesser negative?
Yeah, I see them as more like it's a demonic type of entity, but like I guess how do I put it? Like a more
Is
like
it,
more like animal or like almost like a bug, right? Like where they're not
Yeah.
necessarily going to they don't it's like the different levels of consciousness. That's what I'm trying to get
Right.
at. So, and I find the ones I've encountered anyways, they have that lower consciousness, right? Where
Yeah.
that's why I'm like they're kind of more like animal or bug or something like that. Their intelligence is like really low
Yeah.
in my
Not
experience. Like,
human.
yeah, but not human. Uh, but you might be able to tell me if you happen to come across a creeper. You might be able to tell me different in your experience, but in mine, yeah, they tend to just be more like again an intelligence or consciousness level more along like animal type of thing.
Yeah.
Where yeah, whereas you have certain ones that have the higher consciousness or higher intelligence, and those are the ones you, in my experience, are the most dangerous that
Right.
I've encountered anyways. And like I said, I can go more into that next week. But yeah, I think but like I said, you might have a different experience than me when it comes to creepers. Uh, and same with doppelgangers. I'm still like, what are those, right? I'm still not sure about doppelgangers. What type, again, is it residual energy? Is it an astral projection? Like, is it demonic shapeshifter? Like, what is that, right?
Oh,
I think
yeah.
it might be more like a shapeshifter, but I've never come across one like that, so I can't really say. I have like theories, but yeah, so you
And
might be able to say otherwise, but
the shadow figures, I think some of them are human.
yeah, me too. Yeah, yeah. A lot of people think if you're a shadow figure, you're automatically a demonic thing. But like you said, Susan, like I agree with you. Some of them are going to be demonic, but like the vast majority of the ones I've encountered, anyways, were human. They're malevolent as fuck, but they are human. I haven't yet to come across a shadow, like a human shadow person that wasn't malevolent. So again,
Yeah.
Susan, maybe you've had a different experience, but all the shadow people that I've come across were uh, negative or malevolent in nature.
But that's because you're called in for those. See, we're
When
just
I was a
going
kid,
into places,
yeah.
you know.
Well, when I was a kid, not I wasn't being called in at that point, but I think I was also being targeted because I was that wide
Yeah.
open door, right? And so I think and I was very, very vulnerable, not just because I was a wide open door, but also because I had trauma on top of it and a mental illness on top of that. So I was incredibly, like we had mentioned before in previous lives, and I think we probably even said it in this one, that those darker, malevolent, negative entities will beeline for the most vulnerable. And
Mhm.
so even as a kid, when I saw these human shadow people, they were malevolent in nature because I was incredibly vulnerable on all across the board, right?
Yeah.
So what about you, Susan, though? You say, is your experience a little different?
Well, I think that some of them that I've seen are just residual. I mean,
Okay.
residual, I'm sorry. It's like the projection, there's just a shadow going across, they go back and forth. At the end of the hall, he just walks back and forth and back
Yeah.
and forth. I think that's residual.
Okay.
Some of them, I just think that they're just either stuck in that form and can't, shift into a higher form.
Mm-hmm.
Or because I know, like the one thing that I saw up at the jail at Cripple Creek the other day and it was right before we're going home, I was trying to say, I'm not even dealing with this now. And then I went back again, about a minute later and looked at it. But I mean, that would just look like a little kid peeking out and going back in, like it was afraid of me.
Okay.
Or shy, so
Mm-hmm.
I think we just judge a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I know for me anyways, again, it may or may not be the psychic ability thing. I don't know. Somebody else who doesn't identify as psychic might also have the same experience because it's all that subtle energy, right? And so I would first and foremost, I would feel the energy, and the energy that they were like projecting towards me was of a harmful nature. It was not, I am here to help you, or I'm here to just stand here, right? It was like, I am here, I want you to see me and I want you to be scared, right? And it would be the same with, if they were speaking to me and I would hear them clairaudiently, right? It would be like, I'm here to hurt you, right? Like, so in so many words, right? It would be like, I want to harm you. So I wouldn't so much they wouldn't really give me too many images. It was more of just that feeling of, I'm here to scare you, right? Because I want to feed off that fear energy. So yeah. So for me, and sometimes they would have red eyes, and that would freak me out. So
I don't do red eyes. No red eyes.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. And I might just be maybe I'm just not paying attention because they want to scare me. I'm like, what? And I'm just looking at them like, okay, maybe I just don't have enough fear.
Maybe. Well, I know, again, we can go into this more next week, but when it comes to demonic entities, if they want to scare you, they will.
Well, yeah,
like they will, it's not so much like with the human spirit, depending on how much energy they have, there's only so much they can do energy wise, whereas a demonic has more energy than your average earthbound spirit, right? It's coming through with more power, more energy, and has more abilities, if you will. So if you're encountering a demonic entity and it wants your attention, right, and it wants to scare you, it can and will, right? Like it's a it'll, so that's why I'm like, I don't think that it's that you're just like not aware of it, because they would make you aware of it, right?
Yeah. So I think just low level.
Yeah. I would say it's probably any demonic type of entity that might be attracted to those places you go to. Thus far, it sounds like if you've encountered any demonic entity, it's been those low level, like animal-y, low intelligence type of entities that are just kind of walking around doing their thing, right? Just climbing walls, right? But that does it, just because of the dark places you've been. I'm just like, I would just assume they'd be teeming with dark entities, because that's where they'd be attracted to, is all that yuck, right? Because I've been to houses and stuff where the energy itself, like, demon aside, right, the energy itself in the house is gnarly, and so of course a demon's going to be attracted to that, right? So it's not that the demon brought in the gnarly energy was already there and it attracted the demonic entity, right? So I would think that a place like, say, a jail or or anything like that has a lot of pain and anger and all that, just that residual energy would attract a demonic, just because they could feed off of all of that, even if it's all residual.
But a couple of things. One, I still get unnerved and stuff. Don't get me wrong, I don't have nerves of steel.
Yeah.
I mean, I do, because first of all, I like being scared.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's fun, but
Yeah.
it's like I normally don't go to the next level. But also, I think a lot of it has to do with where your gifts lie, what you're attuned to.
Mm.
Because you can think of the people that'll walk into the most haunted place going, and like, okay, what's this? There's nothing here. So I think it's your attunement, like you said, it's a radio station.
Yeah.
And I keep
No, I could see that.
down, my dial is down on the demons, no demons.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's for sure. I watch they have a new channel now called Watcher, but Ryan Bergara, sorry, and Shane Madej, they go into these haunted places. They're like a comedy people, like they go in for comedy. But Shane is a staunch non-believer, right? Total skeptic, 100%. Whereas Ryan is the believer. He goes in and he's already scared, whether the place is haunted or not. He's scared.
Yeah.
But he goes into these places, and Shane, he goes into these places and he doesn't feel anything. So I get it, right? Because he is a staunch skeptic, right? And so he'll go into those places and and just kind of make a joke of the whole thing, because he doesn't believe anything is there. He's like, it's just air, there's nothing here, right? He's not open at all. He's completely closed off to the possibility that a spirit of any kind could be there. And so he doesn't feel anything. He just walks in and he's like, he went into the Sally house and fell asleep, right? Like he was just
I'm
like,
going to be there in January, I think.
Oh, that's awesome.
Just for a couple days. I mean, a couple hours. We're going to the McIntyre Villa, but excuse me, I didn't go to Sally house last time, so I've never been there. So I was just to stop in and look. My daughter fell asleep there.
Yeah,
but
and
she captured a mist. She captured a mist. I'll have to find it and send it to you.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, I'd love to go to. There's so many places you've been to already that I'm like, bucket list, I would go there. But yeah, so you have someone like Shane Madej, though, who just walked into a place like that, and he walks in and he goes, this is a house, right? He goes into the Sally house and he's just like, this is an empty house. I'm gonna curl up on this bed and I'm gonna go to sleep, and it ain't nothing, right? Whereas you have Ryan, who is just normal sound that will make him jumpy, because he is just like so, terrified just walking in there already. So he's going to be naturally attuned to, even if something isn't there, he's already just jumpy as hell. But because he's already open, that if there is something there, he's going to tune into it immediately. He's going to feel it. Tamika says, lol, me. Yeah, exactly. You're going to walk in, and if there is something there, you will immediately pick up on it because you're wide open to it. Whereas you have someone like Shane who is completely closed off. It's not even just a matter of prove me wrong. He's like, this is stupid and I'm going to make fun of it. He's completely closed off. He's not feeling and picking up on anything because he is just completely guarded, cut off. And not because he's scared, because he simply thinks it's all a joke. So, and makes fun of the whole thing. And in their defense, they picked up some funny things. A previous one they did, a spirit called them nerd. Right? They were like, what's my name? And the thing on the obelisk said nerd. And we just all had a big laugh. Right? So they've had some funny things. They had one come through that said apple taters. And we all just had a good laugh about it. But so it depends. But yeah. So I know we have gone 2 hours. Yeah, again, to no one's surprise, but did we want to wrap up at this point? Because I know it's been 2 whole ass hours, so I get that. Or are there any other stories that you would like to share? Or I have a couple of stories if you want to hear those, but we can totally wait until next time because it's been 2 whole ass hours.
Well, I'm scared to go to bed now because I looked up Tommy Knockers and then I remember what you said. And I looked at the Black-Eyed Children, and I kind of wish I hadn't, because then I started looking at Reggae and a blog on it. I ain't gonna lie, I'm so scared. So tonight I will be sleeping with the lights on. That is scary. So definitely, if tonight or next time, you got to tell me your stories on the Black-Eyed Children. And I did see the thing with the Tommy Knockers. They was talking about some minors, say they see them all the time. I was like, oh my God, that's scary.
Ugh,
Well, I
we
know
need
I
to take her
personally,
out. We need to take her out on an investigation. Tamika, we're going to take you out to an
I died
investigation. We're
fright.
going to give you some equipment. Put you in a
they,
room by yourself.
they will
Oh
certainly
my
be
God, I
attracted
think
to
I would
her.
die of fright. I am so scary. Listen, even reading stuff, when it's storm outside, I'd be so scared. So I wouldn't do good there. Because just reading this stuff, I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, that's scary. And I think the most recent encounter was 2012. So I was like, oh my God. So that's like real. People still reporting seeing them. I was like, yeah, I'm scared now.
Ah,
Yeah.
well, I suppose
So,
I've got to call a client because I forgot.
okay.
I had a headache, so I took a nap earlier instead of talking to her, and she's all mad at me now.
Okay. All right. So maybe we should have saved the angel-y stories for the end instead for poor Tamika. So it's not always all scary, just so you know, it's not always scary.
No, I like learning because I've never heard all this. I guess when us regular folks talk about it, it's always in the context of just ghosts, but just hearing that it's different types and it is scary. I ain't gonna lie, it's scary. I feel like I need to go stage my phone. I'm so scared right now. So yeah, so I like listening to y'all stories and stuff. And like I said, I didn't even know a such thing as a Tommy knocker exists or the whole black eyed kids. And
Oh.
when are y'all gonna talk about that? Because it's saying that it's a theory out there that it could be the kids of the devil and stuff like that.
Oh, I want to talk about the devil because I don't believe in the devil.
No, tell me, let's hear it. Oh, I'm sorry. If it's time, y'all tell me.
Well, I can tell you what I think about the devil. Is that okay, Liz?
yeah, go ahead if you have the time. Sure.
The devil was invented by the church, and I want to 383 keeps coming to my mind. I'm not sure his exact time. It's one of those councils where they were making the decisions, what books to put in the Bible and what to throw out, and what would um, put together, what would support what they wanted people to believe. And they were, I think it was just as a revenue method. I mean, I always say everything's about the money, so it might not, but it's definitely power. But the people, because they were still doing a lot of the pagan religions and they were sort of merging everything, and it was all peace, love, and grooviness back then and all that. I mean, people still hated each other, but they decided that they had to get more control over the people. So, and they also needed funds, so they created the devil and they created purgatory, and then people would give them money to pray their families out of purgatory so that they didn't go down to the devil. And because the devil was so bad and evil, the people were really scared of the devil, so they had to go to church and believe in Jesus and all of this stuff. So, but I also think that what happened after that is that, because I believe in thought forms, they're energies that are created by what we think, that the devil is actually a real, he's a thought form now that people have, and I think that it acts the way people expect the devil to act. But yeah, but I think the devil, I think, is a man-made entity. Does that make sense?
It does. And I don't know how I feel about that now because since this whole revelation or awakening that's gone deeper and knowing about, because I didn't believe in reincarnation until the last couple of months, and knowing what I know, yeah, I have to question that a little bit. And they said that so let me make sure. They said what's his name? Lucifer. I can't even
Lucifer?
pronounce it right now. Yes, that he was an archangel, and
Yeah,
he
he
was
was the
in
most
the.
beautiful angel of all.
Well, yeah, and the crazy part is I got into it with a friend who's also a psychic, and she was like, well, he was God's right-hand man. I was like, not from this list, he wasn't. I said, on this list, he was in the dominions or whatever, and they were lower level archangels.
No,
So it make me, well, no, the core angels, he wasn't at the top.
he
He
was at
wasn't
the
a top
top.
angel. I don't
Yeah,
know.
everything
Liz
I've
probably
learned
can
is that he's
say,
at the top. He was at the
well, that's
top.
the
He's the most
Bible.
beloved.
on the Bible, but if you do the study into the 9 corps of angels, he wasn't at the top. He was Sue, what level was he at? He was some sort with a D. He wasn't so you had your he wasn't at the top. So supposedly he was a lower level archangel and he was over earth. So he wasn't up there with God. And see, that's the misconception people got, that he was up there with God. He wasn't.
Okay.
So the thing is, what I know about reincarnation, I was like, so is there really a hell? I was like, hell could be earth. So I don't know where I'm at right now. So let me just say I'm in limbo. Because now, knowing everything I know, I was like, maybe it's a place. So my friend even asked, she said, so where do you think they go? I was like, I don't know. I said, maybe they do wait until, you know how they say we map our own lives? I said, maybe those people who did bad, they get that privilege taken away and they get forced into something. I was like, so I don't know if it's a hell right now. I said, because based on everything that I've learned and that been put into my spirit per se, the codes and stuff, I really can't say. Because I was like, now I'm starting to question that whole devil and hell thing. So I get where you coming from. I completely do. I just can't tell you what I think it is. So ugh, I see
Well, I
what
know.
you think it is. What y'all think?
I want to start studying the Kabbalah, but I'm not. I don't think I'm ready for that yet spiritually, as far as where I am, to go and really look in, because I think that's a lot of the codes too. And it really
You
does.
really have to, and now I see why going through a spiritual awakening is hard, where they say you have to set aside limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
So I've always been one to embrace different things and look at things from different angles. And I'm not going to hate on my friend, because with her, we both came up in a very strict household. Her father's the minister as well. And she's like, Tamika, she said, I just don't buy that. And I was like, how do you don't buy? Because supposedly everybody was like, oh, the Virgin Mary, Jesus' mother, she got pregnant. Well, if you do the research, she actually came from a line of witches. So she already knew, to a certain extent, her family come from a long line of witches. And by the time she was 15, I think she got pregnant at 16 with Jesus, she already had them pass whatever level it is that she go. It was something as being part of the Sisterhood of the Roses, and had this language that her family had then dedicated themselves to. So she wasn't just a random woman, a girl that got pregnant. So knowing all that stuff and really looking into it, I was like, oh my goodness, so you really have to set aside some of the stuff you believe, and you have to go out on a limb. I get it. It's so hard. And like you were saying, when I was in college, because you had to take religion, the teacher told us, he was like, I'm a minister. I'm just teaching this, because he didn't believe in the stuff he was teaching. Because, they said that it's believed that Mary Magdalene was, part of the sisterhood and everything, and that she was married to Jesus. They put that in the Bible. A lot of people are upset about that. Just like my friend was asking me, do I know who Lilith was? Supposedly she was the first wife of Adam, and she didn't cooperate. So, I don't, like I said, I'm still putting the pieces together. So I was like, I don't talk to my mother about it. I wouldn't dare talk to anybody that's a Christian about it, because that'd be an uproar. But you really have to look at it. And like you said, they took reincarnation out the Bible. So, because too many
Except for
people
you're born again.
See? So it's hard. So I feel you. I just don't know where the devil play his part in. I'm still putting the pieces together where everybody fit in. So I'm on the fence. So I'm listening to the theories and stuff. I look, and believe it or not, Rhetoric is a good site, because those theorist people, they be on point. I'm like, let me research that real quick. So they be on point with their little theories and stuff. And it make me wonder. And that's when I dig into doing research and stuff. So I don't think I got on the devil part. So that's the one that I'm still up in the air about. Where does he fit into all this? And is really a such thing as hell after all? Because like I
Yeah.
said, I got a feeling that hell is right here on earth. Because if you read the book of Revelation, it says that all these things are going to come up on earth and everybody else are going to be gone with the rapture. So I say maybe hell is earth.
Yeah. Maybe we're here because we didn't get raptured up.
Oh, don't say that. I ain't want to miss the boat, but I ain't want it right now, God. So stay right there. I still need to stay here a little bit longer. Do it in 50 years. I ain't planning on being here.
Yeah. But you know, I think evil is real. I think that it's you know, evil is very, very real, and it has many different forms. And so, you know, that I haven't figured out. And I just figure out I'm just going to lump it all in evil and not sweat it. But where I've been being led lately is studying the divine feminine. And probably because I'm an old feminist too, but I mean, just the power of the woman, of the maiden and the crone and the mother, and just, you know, the yin and yang and the balance. But that's where I've been heading off.
Sisterhood of the Roses, look it up, because they
I
have
will.
the key to that whole femininity. It's like
Well,
some sacred thing where they are, I can't even explain it right, but they have the keys to the whole femininity thing. And that's something that I've been trying to push to my group that I deal with my life coaching with relationships. I was like, do people, and this is something that dawned on me because I didn't even realize this till maybe a couple of weeks ago. I said, do y'all really know what yin and yang mean? I was like, men, and I think I got that from Liz's course with the Kundalini awakening. I was like, you got to have a balance, male and female, of that femininity energy and that masculine energy. And I said, they both have to be balanced for you to reach that divine entity. What would you call it, Liz? Because I'm going by a lot of your stuff in your class, because it gave me that aha moment that that's what this is. We have to have that balance, and that femininity really comes in from self-love and really loving yourself. And for women, men, theirs don't come from, you know, that too, but that's when you start getting that balance. So Liz can explain more, because I picked up a lot of this knowledge from her Kundalini class.
Yeah, so some of the names for that balance of the yin and yang, or masculine and feminine, are Shiva and Shakti. But those are, you know, those are names we use, but there are many. There are many. Those are just like, you know, one of many. And there are different, how do I say, like, there's not just one type of feminine and not one type of masculine energy, right? They all there's different, I can't think of the word now, but it slipped my mind because I'm starting to get tired because it's getting late. But yeah, there are different aspects. That's the word I was looking for. There are different aspects of the masculine and different aspects of the feminine, and you can give them different names. So some, you know, a more motherly aspect you might call Shakti, a more of the feminine speaking, you might call it Shakti, or if it's a more fierce, you might call it Kali, right? So just, but they're just names for energy and different aspects of those energies. But this is also something we can either do another call on another day, or we can even chat about it in the group. Just to kind of start to wrap things up a little bit here, because it is getting very late and we are over 2 hours now again. So that's awesome. That I love that we were able to have such a wonderful conversation on all of these different things. And like I said, next week the topic is going to be more on the darker side, the demonic side. So if you guys want to come for that, either, you know, if you have your stories, or if you just want to come and hang out, because I also have stories for that. Is there?
You want to talk about the Black-Eyed Kids?
Yeah, we can talk about the Black-Eyed Kids now. I will preface that by saying I personally, thankfully, and hopefully never will have direct experience with the Black-Eyed Kids, but it is a topic I know a whole lot about. So we can certainly talk about that. I'm not really sure what they are, but we can talk about them then. Susan, did you have anything that you wanted to add just before we wrap up here?
No, I mean, this is just fun.
Okay. Yeah, that's why I'm like, I'm so glad this went as long as it did. I'm not mad that we are over 2 hours. But because I do know, because I am myself starting to get tired and I do respect your time as well. So I will say we will start to wrap things up here. And we can either continue the conversation in next week's call, or we can start another call around the topic of awakening and masculine and feminine energy and all that jazz. I love all of that stuff and I can talk about it for hours. But we could also chat about it in the group as well. Like I said, safe space. So if you're talking, if we're having ideas about, is Satan or is, the devil real? And if he is, what is it? And all of that jazz, absolutely talk about that in the group. And I will make sure that everyone is respectful because it is a safe space. And so if anyone, I have the number one rule, and that's in the group and it's in my life. That's my number one rule is don't be a dick. So if anyone's a dick, you get blocked. So don't be a dick. Let's all be respectful. And if need be, agree to disagree, right? You don't need to be a jerk. So with that said, I will say thank you so much for being here. This was awesome. And I cannot wait to do it again. Thank you for being here. I will see you in the group and have a wonderful rest of your night, guys.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Bye.
Bye.